To create trippy visuals like these, Disney would first film something called live-action reference, using actors to play out the scene, then handing it all off to the animators to create pencil tests, which were then photographed frame by frame. It took forever, and everyone probably got carpal tunnel syndrome, but the end result gave us the OG shrinking moment. Fast forward to the live-action version, and Tim Burton put his own spin on it. This shot was deceptively simple to accomplish. All they had to do on set was raise the camera higher to give us the illusion that she was shrinking away from us. And after creating a CG dress falling over her at its original size, they put her head back on and boom, $1 billion at the box office and just so much Hot Topic merch. But before we had fancy things like 3D software, movies had to get a little creative. While on vacation with his wife, Scott passes through a strange mist that ends up rearranging his molecular structure. It starts off subtle, with his clothes no longer fitting him and his wedding ring slipping off, but soon he becomes too small to ignore. For shots like this, they used forced perspective, having the actors sit at a different distance from camera than the others, a method that was used heavily on Lord of the Rings to make Gandalf interact with Frodo. An even trickier scene was when Scott fights off a spider. Oh. To go that small, they had to create some oversized sets and props, like a 15-foot mousetrap or a 40-pound pair of scissors. At the end of the movie, Scott realizes that his shrinking will never stop. What awaits him as he becomes so small? The microscopic becomes the infinite. Before Ant-Man did the quantum realm, Shrinking Man seeded the idea. But now, let's move over to a subgenre of shrinking, going inside the human body. Fantastic Voyage from 1966 introduced a submarine crew that shrinks down and is injected into a dying scientist in order to save him from a blood clot. Back then, technology hadn't quite caught up to the film's ambitions, and you can see they had trouble merging the actors with the background.
Background is kind of what we call scissoring.
I'm sorry, what? And when they weren't using large glass tanks to create the bloodstream footage, they actually built out enormous sets for the actors to float.
Change my mind.
But since they didn't have the technology to remove the wires they were attached to, they just painted them the same color as the background.
Skvita, are you here? Maybe you would like to go Reaper.
So you wouldn't see them. Clever ways to deal with the problem they just didn't have the tools for yet. But almost 20 years later, in 1987, a little movie called Inner Space would take that same idea to a whole other level. After a tiny Dennis Quaid gets injected into Martin Short's ass, it starts a miniature adventure of epic proportions. To make the human body of Inner Space as believable as possible, they built out this huge track with water running through it and placed in a model of the ship to look like it was traveling through the inside of a vein. But the creativity didn't stop there. When the bad guys are shrunk to 50% of their size, they start attacking our heroes in a wild car chase.
Stop this car!
What is the problem to kill small people?
To get all this to work, they cut a car in half and built the back seat at 4 times the size. This looked alright for the most part,